Hey everybody, welcome back to the 80s Slashers YouTube channel. In this video, I thought we would have a little talk about the Prom Night franchise. Um, so I thought we'd start by taking a look at these four films. We'll kind of go through them chronologically. We'll talk about, there's five films, but we'll get to that. We'll go through the films. We'll talk about them. I'll give my, my at the end I'll give my rankings on where I place each of these films, talk about the franchise as a whole. So as you can see here, I have four of the five Prom Night films. So first film, obviously starting it off, Prom Night 1980. That was followed by Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night II. That was from 1987. Up next, we had Prom Night III, The Last Kiss from 1990. And last one I have is Prom Night IV, Deliver Us from Evil from 1991. Now, there is a fifth film in the franchise, which is, I guess, like a remake or a reboot, whatever you want to call it. And that one was released in 2008. So yeah, pretty decent size horror franchise, right? Five films. A lot of these get sequels, maybe a trilogy. This one, even without the remake, there's still four films, which is a nice little horror franchise, which is always nice to see. I like. I don't know what it is. I like these little franchises. They're fun. Keep them all in a little world, and yeah, it's always good to have. I don't know. So, what I'll do, let's start off. We'll talk about each one separately. We'll go through them, and then I'll do my ranking, and we'll wrap it all up with some final thoughts on like I said, the franchise as a whole. So yeah, let's talk some Prom Night and start it off with the first film. Okay, so yeah, Prom Night. Like I said, 1980. Now this film, all of these films, this is a Canadian franchise, except for the remake. But we'll get into that. But yeah, this is a Canadian horror franchise, which myself being a Canadian, it's fantastic. I love this series. That's obviously unbiased, but yeah, Prom Night original film. This was filmed in Toronto, filmed in late 1979, and it was released July 18th, 1980. So yeah, this was released basically 2 months after Friday the 13th. So, obviously, being filmed in late 79, this isn't, even though this is considered obviously an early 80s slasher, this isn't one of the ones that, was trying to emulate and rip off Friday the 13th, on the success of that film. Like, this was in production. This is its own thing, uh, is it doing that from Halloween? Yeah, like obviously there's some similarities. They were trying to capitalize on the fame of Halloween, but yeah, this isn't a Friday the 13th ripoff. It's really early 80s. So yeah, so that's good. It kind of makes it its own type of slasher. Running time 93 minutes, which is perfect for a slasher film, in my opinion. This had a budget of $1.5 million, uh, and it was really successful at the box office. It took in 14.8 million, and then it earned an additional $6 million in like video store rentals after that. So um, at least in terms of finance, like the financials for this film, it was a success. Whether you like this film or not, that's a whole other subjective argument. But no one can argue that on like a 1.5 million budget, this took in almost $20 million. Like when you combine it with the VHS rentals and whatnot. So very successful. This is actually Canada's highest earning horror film of 1980. So yeah, it did really well. It was super popular. Having Jamie Lee Curtis probably didn't hurt. She was coming off of Halloween, and yeah, so very successful. Now, I should say this is one of those co-production films between Canada and the United States. They so there was some backers and whatnot in the States, but this was kind of like used as like a tax shelter. There's a lot of these films shot in Canada just due to like a tax breaks and whatnot. So this is one of those films. A lot of them during this time were doing that. So. And the film does have connections to a producer who did work on Halloween, and the producer suggested to the director that the film um, should utilize another holiday theme. Um, you know, and obviously that's Halloween was a success, and it's kind of the beginning of these horror films based around a holiday. And so yeah, this was even though like it's has some roots obviously in Halloween. Like I said, it came before Friday the 13th, so it's kind of in between Halloween, Friday the 13th, and so you can see like these naming these horror type slasher films after these holidays. It was kind of a thing, and obviously once Friday the 13th came out, the floodgates opened, and there were so many of them. But yeah, so that's kind of the history of the making of this film. Jamie Lee Curtis herself, it seems her salary to make this film was $30,000, which in today's money is about just over like $105,000. So um, I guess that's pretty good. I don't know. I guess like, an actress making $100,000 for nowadays is probably pretty low. But this is the first film that she says that she made any money on. So it's kind of interesting. So I'm sure she looks fondly on it. This is, obviously it stars Leslie Nielsen. This is one of his last serious roles that he ever did. Basically, after this, he just stuck to comedies. So it's kind of refreshing seeing him because, when I first saw this film, um, Leslie Nielsen was, yeah, he was a comedic name to me. It's just so it's interesting to see him in a role that he's not so slapsticky and whatnot. So for that, it's kind of interesting. And a majority of the supporting actors were like stage actors and graduates from the University of Toronto. So I don't know, it's kind of some interesting tidbits, I think. The film itself, it took 24 days to film between August 13th and September 13th of 1979, and it was filmed at Don Mills Collegiate Institute. So yeah, there you go. That's the full little rundown of the making of this film. Like, there's quite a bit of information. Some of these later films, I'm not gonna have that much information, but this information is available online. So I just thought I'd put it out there. Just kind of some interesting tidbits of the making of it. So yeah, Prom Night. This is one of, like I say, this is an early example of that classic 80s slasher. It followed the formula, like again, starting with Halloween and progressing through this to Friday the 13th and onward. It had that formula that was clicking and just working so well. There's the beginning of the film. There's like the prior evil scene. With this one, it's a group of kids, and they're messing around and they accidentally kill like a young girl. And then they swear that it's their secret. They're gonna go to their grave. They're not gonna tell anybody about it. But of course, somebody witnessed it, and you know, fast forward to 1980, and they're all those group of kids are in high school now. They're graduating prom night, and someone who witnessed the prior evil is out to kill them, hunts them, stalks them, one by one. So yeah, again, it's just very formulaic, but that's what this genre is. The setting is a unique, cool setting. It's not all in the school, but there is a large percentage of the film that takes place in the school, which is a great place to set a film. It's kind of cliche now, but back then, it was neat because it's one of those settings that um, it's relatable to everybody, like everybody goes to school, everyone's been to high school, so you can put yourself in your high school and imagining that there's a mass killer running around chasing you, killing you in your school. It's something that we can all relate to. So that's why these types of settings work. Summer camp settings, the same thing. It's like most of us have gone to a summer camp, so we can relate, and it's nothing elaborate, nothing fancy, but it's just it hits home. So it's a really good setting. Um, this film, decent practical effect. The kills are pretty good. They're not the best in the genre for sure, but they're definitely pretty good. There's a decapitation scene which is fantastic. And then the whole mystery twist reveal. I thought it worked well. The story made sense. Yeah, this is a solid early '80s slasher in my opinion. It compared to like some like the Friday the 13th and some of like the more violent films, this one does seem a little muted. The kills aren't like overly violent. Like the practical effects aren't like super gory or whatnot. There's barely any nudity. It's just it feels like it's muted. I guess that's the best term I think for my opinion. It's more about the story, I think. But they threw a little bit of everything else in there as well. But I still like this film. Like I said, it's just a really great example of an early '80s slasher, and yeah, I really like it. It just it doesn't compete with like the heavy hitters of this era, in my opinion. But yeah, it's tough to beat this. As you get later in the '80s, it's harder and harder to um, find a slasher that's as good as this one, in my opinion. So I like Prom Night. And yeah, the as of now, the Blu-ray is the best quality that you can find this film on. Like obviously DVD, VHS, and this is Synapse. So yeah, if you want to pick this up, this is the best version you can get. All right, let's move on, and we'll take a look at Prom Night Part 2. All right, so yeah, next up we have Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. So yeah, this film is from 1987, and again, Canadian film. This one was filmed in Edmonton, Alberta. I think the filming took place in August of 1986, and this film is 97 minutes long. So again, right in that sweet spot for an '80s slasher, in my opinion. Budget for this film was $2.5 million Canadian, is the number I have. So 2.5 Canadian. And the box office haul on this was 2.7 million US. So it made some money, but not a lot. It basically got its money back. But it did do better on in home video. So but yeah, not obviously anywhere near as successful as the original film. A 7-year gap. That's it's a pretty big time period. They probably should have and could have capitalized on the original film a little quicker than 7 years. But there's a history behind this, so we'll get to it. Yeah, so basically, what this film was originally shot and filmed to be a standalone film, and there was actually a working title. It was called The Haunting of Hamilton High. And the whole premise, the whole setup. This film was clearly influenced, at this time by films such as A Nightmare on Elm Street, Carrie, and The Exorcist. That was kind of the what they were going for. Obviously, this is a supernatural slasher. So yes, that was the original intent. They were just making a regular, haunting of Hamilton High supernatural slasher film with those influences. Now, before it got completed, um, there was some producers that were working on the film. They decided to reshoot half of the film, and it was once it was reshot, they rebranded it as a sequel to the original Prom Night film, and they gave it this new title, Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night II. And honestly, the only connection that this film has with the original is that they both films take place in the same high school, Hamilton High. So the first film, that was the name of the high school, and this one also takes place at Hamilton High. So yeah, that was the only bare bones connection that links these two and make it a sequel. In later years, some of the filmmakers involved, they felt that rebranding it actually damaged its reception. So I don't know, like I say, it wasn't super successful, and like I said it found its audience with the home video crowd. It did a lot better on home video, but in terms of theatrical release, yeah, it wasn't too successful. So I don't know. I would it have been better if it was called Haunting of Hamilton High, just a standalone slasher? I don't know. I don't really see how. Like people love sequels, especially that back then. You see Prom Night II. I don't know. So it's interesting the history on this film. So who knows? Um, but yeah, like I said, unlike the original film, this is without a doubt a supernatural slasher. Basically, what this film is about, it starts off like again the prior evil scene. There's a girl, Mary Lou Maloney is the main character in this film, and I think we flash back to, I don't know, is it like the 50s? Yeah, 1957, and she's kind of a promiscuous girl. She has a couple guys. She's like dating a guy, but she's cheating on him with this other guy. And she has some enemies because she's not like the best. She's going to priest and confessional booths, and she's saying all these nasty, dirty things to the priest. She's just a really promiscuous girl for 1957. And yeah, at the prom, she gets on stage, kind of like Carrie, and someone tries to kind of pull a prank on her. It goes wrong, and she ends up burning to death, not getting blood dropped on her like Carrie. She gets burned to death and dies, and that scene is fantastic. Um, so yeah, so that's to set up this story, the prior evil, and then we flash forward 30 years later to 1987, and the two boyfriends that she was kind of had back in the 50s. They're One is like I think the principal of Hamilton High, and the other one's like a priest. And somehow her spirit, her evil ghost spirit, gets unlocked and unleashed on this school, and she kind of like I don't even know what the word is. She kind of like latches on to like a student and kind of possesses her, like the Exorcist kind of thing. And then she gets this girl to start doing her bidding and start killing and going on a rampage. And yeah, that's basically the story. And like the older people, is it Michael Ironside? Yeah, Michael Ironside, awesome. um he's like her ex-boyfriend. He's like the principal, so they have to figure out what's going on, and they're trying to stop her. And uh yeah, and that's basically the basic setup, which is, it's fun, it's really fun. Like again, part Nightmare Elm Street, part Carrie, part Exorcist. um but yeah, everything about this film is just over the top. Like the kills, the nudity. There's a lot of nudity. There's a lot of kills. The special effects are crazy in this film. I read somewhere that they took days and days and days to film like one scene. There's like this really cool scene where someone gets sucked into like a chalkboard at the school, and they on this like black chalkboard, and their body gets like sucked in. And apparently it cost them like thousands of dollars an hour to do this, and took them like weeks. It's crazy. Like the special effects were really cool. And it's just like the kills, like so much variety, so unique, and just it's this film is a lot of fun. I I really dig this film. This is my I said this before on the channel. I'm not a big supernatural slasher fan. I prefer like the original Prom Night. Like you get like just a bad guy, hunting and killing, and I just like straightforward. It could happen to anyone kind of thing. Um, so yeah, supernatural is not really my favorite kind of thing, but I think this is my favorite supernatural slasher within the 80s. Within the 80s, so this is my favorite supernatural 80s slasher. Better than Nightmare on Elm Street films. I'll say it. I know people are shocked and can't believe. I like some of the Nightmare films, but I really like this one. This is really good. So yeah, that's Prom Night 2. This is not an official Blu-ray. This is something I picked up online. It's basically DVD quality. It's not like it's on a Blu-ray disc. It plays in a Blu-ray player, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, there's no official Blu-ray for this. This desperately needs a Blu-ray, so you can get it. You can pick it up on eBay, DVD, all over the place. Yeah, so that's Prom Night 2. Hello, Mary Lou. All right, let's move on and we'll take a look at part 3. All right, so up next we have Prom Night 3, The Last Kiss. Um, Now I don't have a lot of information for these upcoming films, but I'll talk about as much of them as I can. This was basically a film. It was released in 1990. In Canada, it had a theatrical release April of 1990. But in the United States, this didn't have a theatrical release. It had a direct-to-video release in June of 1989. So technically, this is an 80s slasher. Um, I always have it credited as 1990 because that's its theatrical release. Canada, it's again a Canadian film, but yeah, it was released on video in 1989. So technically, this is an 80s slasher. Film itself 97 minutes long, so on par with the previous two films running time. It's nothing super short, nothing way too long. It's in that sweet spot. The film itself was filmed in Toronto, Ontario, and I wasn't able to find any budget or box office information, anything like that. I doubt it had a very big budget. I'd say $1 million mark area, little under, a little over, I don't know. And yeah, box office. I'm sure it didn't do very well at the box office or video sales, whatever. I don't know. This is one of those ones I feel like it had a better life on the home video market than obviously the theaters. So it's kind of lived on, has a cult reputation. Probably just because it's part of this little franchise, which is fun. Now, part 3 here, this is actually kind of a direct sequel to Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, because this film actually has Mary Lou Maloney returning, albeit a different actress playing her. And yeah, basically the setup for this film is, again, I really don't want to spoil anything from the previous films, but obviously in part 2, Mary Lou Maloney's not gonna win. She's the bad guy. So she gets locked away back in hell where she came from, kind of thing. And in this film, she gets released from hell. She escapes from hell, and she goes back to Hamilton High, where this film takes place. Of course, the one and only connection. But yeah, she gets back to Hamilton High, and again she is looking for like a person to do her bidding. And this time she finds like a naive, goofy high school kid who's not really good. He has big dreams, but he's not really good at school. He's not really good at sports. So he's kind of like a perfect subject for her to kind of like latch onto. So she gets this guy. She does her sexual things with him to get his attention, and so he'll do whatever she wants him to do. And that's what she does. And she gets this guy, and he starts doing her bidding, and people start dying and all that stuff. So, and yeah, that's basically the setup for this film. It's not too elaborate. So yeah, this film is basically, this is classified as kind of a black comedy slasher. It definitely walks the line between horror and like spoof comedy. They're really kind of yeah, they're just trying to be like a campy, cheesy horror comedy type of film. And for me, it didn't really work just because it's not funny. It's really cheesy. Maybe back in 1989, 1990, this it played better. I don't know. For my sensibilities, what I look for, and not only a horror film, but like in, the subgenre of like the horror comedy, there's much better versions of this. But yeah, so like I said, the setting of this film, it returns to Hamilton High. Um, it's also, like, again, supernatural in nature. But that, obviously, like the horror elements, the supernatural elements, it all kind of um is secondary to like the comedy aspects of this. It seems like that's what they were really going for, just to kind of get a chuckle out of it and just be silly and campy and over the top. Um, yeah, so I don't know. To me, this film is definitely the odd duck in the franchise. It's the most unique entry, as it's so different from everything else in this little, 5 film franchise. So this one stands out for different reasons. So uh, yeah, so that's really all I have to say about it. Not too much. This, what you're looking at here, this is a two-pack DVD. I don't know. This isn't on Blu-ray for sure. I don't know if there's a standalone DVD. There might be, but when you look on like eBay and Amazon, this is the most common way to see this film, and it looks fine. Like it's a decent quality DVD. So yeah, if you want it, this is probably the best way to grab these films here. Um, yeah, two movies, one DVD. It looks fine. So yes, that's all I have to say about Prom Night 3. Let's move on and talk about Prom Night 4. All right. So, yeah, Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil, from 1991. This film was made, I'm sorry, this film was released in December of 1991. It was filmed once again in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So all 4 of these films are Canadian-made slashers, which is great. Running time is 92 minutes, right in that sweet spot. And again, no budget, no box office information, but I have to assume it's very similar to Part 3. They probably same level of success, I would think. Not so great. I don't even know if this got a theatrical release, but if it did, probably not so great in the theaters. But probably had a little better showing over its years in home video sales. So, Prom Night 4. Basically, this is a standalone slasher film in the series. Mary Lou Maloney is gone from, parts 2 and part 3. There's no connection to part 1, characters or anything like that. Again, the only connection that makes this a prom night film is that it takes place at Hamilton High School. Yeah, that's it. So, um, like part 2, no, I should say this also gets back to the regular horror slasher genre. This, like I said, this was a comedy-ish slash slapstick, campy, whatever you want to call it. This brings us back to like the straight horror slasher, which is great. I'm happy about that. But yeah, so like part 2, there was a prior evil, setup type flashback scene from 1957, same year as, part 2. And yeah, we basically see a young couple, 1957, at, like, I think it's a prom, and they're out in their car, and they're having their little adult fun time in the car. And a young priest who's, obviously gone crazy, sees them as sinners. They're, having out of wedlock sex or whatever. And when he kills them, and 1957, he kills them, and he gets caught, and the priests kind of protect him, so they lock him away in, like, I think it's the basement of like a church or something, and they keep him tied to a bed and like sedate it with drugs and whatnot, and forget about him. They don't want the bad publicity on the church, so that's how they dealt with it in 1957. We flash forward 1991, 1990, 91, whatever, and it's Hamilton High, time for prom again, and of course the deranged, crazy priest escapes, and he just goes right back to Hamilton High to start killing people again. And yeah, there was like a group of, I think there's only four, and they go four high school students who don't look anything like high school students, but whatever. They go to like a house to sell prom after party, and the priest shows up and starts killing everybody, and that's the setup. That's basically it. Um, so now, like I said, this is kind of a return to form from like the original film, because there's not really any supernatural things. There might be a little bit. I can't recall, but it's pretty straight. It's a straight horror film. It's no supernatural, no campy humor. It's like I said, they play it straight as a slasher film. Um, yeah, like mostly what this is about is like witnessing, watching a deranged killer on the loose, stalking and killing a group of teen friends. It's the typical formula. The one thing that this film does have, it's pretty heavy on um, the like the religion aspect. Like obviously the killer is a priest, and like the back history is of the church and whatnot. So yeah, like it's the previous two films touched on it a little bit. Like the original film, 1980 film, had some of that going on as well, with one of the characters grew up to be a priest, and so religion is kind of a theme within this franchise. But this film is definitely it's the most heavy. Um, yeah, so take that for what you want. I could do with or without it. It doesn't really matter. Um, so yeah, so this this time period, 90, 91, 92, in my opinion, not a great era for slasher films. Um, so this has a look and a feel. It's cheesy. The acting's not good. The writing is. It's just this is not a. It's it doesn't come off as a highly polished, big budget horror film. It's pretty low budget, and like I said, it's just a product of the era. And yeah, it is what it is. I'm just happy that they went back to the standard slasher formula for that. All right, let's move on. We'll talk about the last film in this franchise. All right, so up last we have Prom Night 2008. As you can see, I don't have a physical copy of this film, and I probably never will. So yes, this is like I don't know, a reboot, a remake. I don't know. It's 90 minutes long. This is not a Canadian film. It was filmed in Los Angeles, and it had a budget of $20 million, and the box office it took in 57.2 million. So I guess it was pretty successful. It more than doubled its money. So yeah. Um, this film again. I don't want to talk too much about it because I honestly I seen it when it first came out. I don't know if I saw it in the theater or like on if I rented it on DVD or whatnot. But I saw it probably around 2008, 2009, and I don't remember too much about it. I just remember I didn't really like it. This is your typical, reboot, remake from this era. They were doing a lot of this stuff, and I, I just, it's just not my thing. It really has that, this period of horror films really has that glossy finish to it. There's no grime, there's no sleaze to make it like I, I don't know, like I want my horror films to feel a little gritty. This is just that, you know, fancy camera equipment, beautiful Hollywood actors. Everyone's young and hot and famous, and that's when they're making this film. It seems that's the most important aspect, as opposed to like the horror elements or the story. So I don't know. And this film is like PG. It's rated PG. Like, how do you make a slasher film that's not rated R. It's just it's not for me. I'm sure there's people who there's fans of this film. Great. Maybe if I revisit it, maybe I would like it a little more now. But I just remember don't liking it, and I just don't really have any interest. There's too many movies to watch. I'll probably never go back and revisit this film. So um, yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. I just want to include it so it's part of the franchise technically. So all right, let's just move on and let's I'm gonna do a quick little ranking of these five films, just for fun. So let's move on and take a look at my prom night rankings. All right, so coming at number five, we have Prom Night 2008. Again, I just talked about this. This film is just not for me. It's not my style of horror. It's not my typical film that I'm gonna go back to. So uh, it's just yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. I don't think it's a terrible film. I'm sure there's some redeeming qualities to it. I just uh, yeah, just not for me. So let's just let's just move on and we'll take a look at number four. All right, so coming at number four, we have Prom Night III, The Last Kiss. Honestly, this of all the films in the original the four films, this is the only one I really didn't enjoy. I remember sitting through this. This was a first time watch for me like this year. Both of these films I hadn't seen these ones, and I remember sitting through this and just like looking at the time, looking at my phone all the time. I was just bored. I was just like, when is this over? And it just didn't work for me because I was I see prom night in the title and I'm expecting a horror film, a slasher film, whether it's a bad, cheesy, early '90s film or not. That's what I expected, and this is not what this is. It just the comedy ruined it for me. It's again not for me. It's just not what I look for in these types of films. I honestly I found a lot of it stupid. The comedy didn't work. Uh, I don't know. I like the Mary Lou character. So I kind of like that it is like directly linked to an earlier film. That always I like that. I like to see strong links between films, but it wasn't enough to save it. It's just the whole thing was just too silly, boring, not bloody enough. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. So yeah, so on number four, Prom Night 3. All right, let's take a look at number three. All right, so coming at number three, we have Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil. Um, this film was all right. It's not great. I kind of liked it. Uh, after I watched this pretty soon after, like I'm gonna like I watched this and then I probably watched this. I don't know, two, three, four. Within a week after I watched this, I watched this. So after seeing that, it was a welcome return to like a horror slasher film. So um, it kind of came up for me a little bit, but again, it's not a good film. Like none of like the story is pretty plain. The acting is not great. There wasn't a lot to like about this film, but it was okay. It was enjoyable. Um, it's again pretty tame. The kills and nudity were just they were there, but they again just nothing about this stood out. It was just a pretty generic early '90s slasher film that happens to be titled Prom Night. But again, at least it's returned the franchise to a horror film, so I'll give it props for that. They didn't stick around, so and yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. So let's take a look at my Prom Night ranking number two. All right, so coming at number two, we have Prom Night II. Hello, Mary Lou. I really liked this film. Honestly, this I was hemming and hawing back and forth. This could be number one. Um, like I said, this is my of all the '80s slashers. This is my favorite supernatural slasher. I think in the genre. I like it that much. Um, it's I don't know. It's just of all these films, it's the most fun. It's uh, it's it, it's the one that I can watch the most. I think 'cause it's just so fun. It's so enjoyable. It's entertaining. I love the backstory, the whole Carrie parody thing, which is great. Like the burning to death scene is fantastic. Practical effects and the kills are really good. They got that '80s cheesy thing going on for sure with some of like the early practical effects CGI, whatever they did. But it works. It's really good. They're really unique and original. Good variety. There's a ton of nudity in this. There's a couple scenes of nudity in this film that's really long, extended, gratuitous nudity, but it works. It's fun. Again, the fun setting in the high school is good. It's a good place to have a slasher. It really has it all. It's just a blast to watch. If you've never seen Prom Night 2, and it sounds something like you might like, check it out. It's really fun. It's just a really it's a good time. So yeah, so coming to number two, Prom Night 2. Hello, Mary Lou. All right, let's obviously take a look at what is number one. All right, so of course the original 1980 Prom Night is coming in as my favorite film in the franchise. And honestly, like I said, as fun as Part Two was, which like I said, it's more watchable just because of how fun it is. Uh, this film just has that classic feel, the classic tone that just works for me. That's the type of horror, that's the type of slasher film that I want to see, that I like. So just because of the style of film this is, I had to put it number one. And like I said, I like it. I know some people don't like this film. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I like it. I like the kills. I like Jamie Lee Curtis, and there's like a really fun disco. You get to see her do some disco dancing, which is great. The music, it kind of has that late '70s look, early '80s. It just everything. I'm a sucker for this era of film, especially horror and especially slasher films. It's tough for me to rank a mid '80s supernatural slasher over this because I just love this subgenre so much. So uh, it's just I don't know. I like this film. Is it the perfect '80s slasher? No, there's a lot better ones than this, but in comparison to this franchise, this is for me it's head and shoulders above, just because of like again the style of the film. Um, yeah, so that's my quick little ranking of of the Prom Night franchise. Let's just wrap this video up with some final thoughts. All right, so yeah, overall, um, I, I don't feel like Prom Night is a really strong franchise. Of the five films that are in it, really, there's only two that I think are actually good films and ones that I'll, continue to revisit, rewatch, and enjoy. The other three films, they're there. They're part of the franchise. Uh, Honestly, like this could have ended as like a two film series. And it might have been thought of as better. I don't know. I don't know. These last three films, they kind of left a sour taste in my mouth going through the whole franchise. They really weren't needed. Just kind of cash grabs, slap the name on them, set them in Hamilton High, and we're off. It's just not really needed. They could have been any other generic '90s horror film. But you know what? I love the idea, the concept. a slasher film set around a prom. All these are kind of set around a prom, so I guess that is another connecting theme, albeit very lightly. But um, obviously this one. But yeah, I like the school setting, the prom theme. It's just it works for me. And then as the series kind of went into like the supernatural, comedy, religion, it kind of as it went on, it kind of lost my interest again. So I don't know. It's okay. As a whole, the franchise. I'm glad I have all these. So my recommendation is definitely check out these first two films if you haven't seen them before. This is your classic example of an early 80s slasher. This is a fun, supernatural, cheesy, over the top, just entertainment. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these. If you love these and completionist sake, yeah, check out these other two films. You know, you may like them more. I know some people do like this one quite a bit. I've seen online and stuff. People do like this one. People like this one too, actually. I just not for me. But that's it. That's my little talk, thoughts, review, countdown, ranking of the whole Prom Night series. So hopefully you guys like this. I know this is a little longer than usual, so if you sat through this, thank you for doing that. But yeah, hopefully we can do this. There's a bunch of 80s slasher franchises, that exist. So maybe we can do this again. We'll talk about some other franchises. There's obviously the Friday the 13th, the Halloween, the Nightmare on Elm Street. There's the Sleepaway Camp. There's the Slumber Party Massacre. There's the Sorority House Massacre. There's a few different franchises that we can talk about. So yeah, we'll see how this one does. And yeah, if you want more of these types of videos, let me know. Comments below, and yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I haven't really talked about Friday the 13th as a series, so that'd be a big one. That might have to be a two-part video. This one's look how long this video was. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. So anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time. All right, see ya.